Good morning, Instagram. I hope everyone is doing well. So, I have a special conversation today, and it's going to be around developing mental toughness. Because, I've been talking a little bit about, developing your secret sauce, and this is a critical factor when it comes to, okay, let's say you decide, I want more out of life, right? I want more out of life. Where I got a plan in place, I'm going to go for it, but you need that mental toughness. You need that self-discipline to follow through with it. So I'm going to keep the conversation a little bit short and sweet today, and I'm going to be talking about three main factors that come into actually following through with your plan and purpose, and that is mental toughness, self-discipline, and your inner self-talk, right? Because this whole game, let's just call it, right? This whole game of life, right? It's an inner war, and we really got to start working on, our mental attitude, our mental state of mind, if we want to win the war. So, mental toughness is going to be a really important conversation to have, and I feel like a lot of people think when it comes to being mentally tough, right, it's the most badass, most savage people out there, like the cutthroat peoples they typically look at. And, maybe they do have this level of mental toughness, but, some of the people that I know are some of the most mentally tough individuals that I know are actually extremely kind, but they know that they have a dream, they have a goal, and that they're going to go through with it, right? They're going to develop the mental toughness to go through with it, right? So I'm not saying you have to be a savage here, but I am saying, right, you're going to need to work on your mindset, right? Bob Proctor says that success is 5% strategy and 95% your mindset. So that's why it's super important, right? Even though, I'm not saying to be a cutthroat savage, but we definitely got to start developing a mental toughness and really let no obstacle stop us. Because here's the deal, right? All the successful people out there, right, they've all experienced some sort of obstacle, some sort of temporary defeat, and they had to have the mental toughness to ask themselves, how can I overcome this, right? And I guess that will lead me to the first point in becoming mentally tough, right? I mentioned this once, but I want to say it again, right? You want to know what thinking really is, right? How do we think our way into the results that we want? Well, thinking, it really starts down with the questions that you ask yourself, right? What questions am I asking myself on a habitual basis, right? Am I asking myself questions on how it can't be done, or am I asking myself questions on how it can be done? Right? The difference between you and the successful people is that successful people developed this mental toughness, this self-discipline to continuously ask greater questions that will give them greater answers. So it starts really, with number one, what questions are you asking yourself? Are you mentally tough enough to ask yourself the big life demanding questions, right? The questions that revolve around your definite major purpose, or are you asking yourself questions around the little things that don't truly matter? Okay? So next I want to also lead it, right? I think this is highly related to developing a self-discipline, right? In Bob Proctor, he actually says that self-discipline, this is his definition of self-discipline, is the ability to give yourself a command and follow through with it. Yes, it's great. You found your purpose. Yes, it's great. You have a plan. Yes, it's great. You know what you want. But do you have the self-discipline to give yourself a command and follow through with it? Because the truth is, right, when you decide, I'm going to go for something that I want, I'm going to go for a dream, right, there's typically not going to be, it's not like the whole school system where they tell you what to do and you just follow through, right? You're going to have to create your own path, right? You're going to need to create your own path in some instances. You're going to need to step out into the unknown. So when you say that you're going to pick up that phone and start dialing. When you say that, you're going to start presenting yourself, building your brand, right? Are you following through with it? Are you following through with what you say you're going to be doing? And that self-discipline, right, is so critical to develop. And I'll tell you what, right, we as human beings, right, we have, one of the greatest gifts on earth, and that is our ability to think. And one of the ways that we think is we have these higher faculties. And one of the higher faculties is your willpower, your ability to focus. Right? You have the will. It is part of your mind. It is something I have. It is something you have. You have the willpower to focus on doing the task that you need to do. Right? I'm pretty confident you know what is the next step that I need to get done. Right? Do you have the self-discipline to acknowledge it and follow through on it? All right? So, self-discipline is key. And for me personally, one of the best ways that I was able to really learn self-discipline, like I will admit, I do bash on college a lot, but one thing that it taught me with the engineering was, just having the self-discipline to follow through and complete it, right? So that was a huge help. And then another huge help for me was really reading books around the Navy SEALs, because these individuals, right, what's really cool about the military is they teach you, habits, right? They teach you successful habits, waking up early, making your bed, getting out there, doing what most people are unwilling to do. And when these Navy SEALs, right, when they would write the books, like I would read books like David Goggins, Dan Bilzerian, right, all these great books that the Navy SEALs wrote about the self-discipline that they needed to develop, right? That was absolutely game changer, and that's where I would start, right? If you really want to start developing self-discipline, start reading these stories and start realizing, just how wide your perspective can get, because our experience, right? We think we've been through some tough times, right? We haven't really been through tough times, right? There's people out there that have gone through way worse, and so it's really cool to get those perspectives. So that's self-discipline. And now the final thing that I do want to touch on today is your self-talk, right? Because that inner voice is what's either going to help you win or help you fail, right? The way that you talk to yourself is so important, more important than what anyone else outside of you says, because you got to realize, right, we're hanging out with ourselves 95% of the time, right? It's not other people. So really you got to start to rewire your brain and start really thinking, how can I improve my self-talk so that I actually follow through and I have the self-discipline? This is absolutely key. Now, I'll give you one last suggestion, right? I actually would listen to positive self-talk, literally rewiring my brain so that all of a sudden, I start habitually thinking that I am more disciplined, right? This is something most people don't even realize, and I'm definitely planning on going on this more in depth, but understand, right, what you say to yourself is going to, one, affect your self-image, and two, affect your ability to follow through with commands, right? How many times have we set out to do something, right? We set out a goal, we set out a plan, but we talked ourselves out of it. Oh, maybe I shouldn't call this person. They're probably busy right now. They don't want to speak to me right now, right? So how many times have we talked ourselves out of picking up that phone and dialing, right? It's our inner monologue that's holding us back, right? So we need to start developing, right, this self-discipline of just working on our mindset every single day, so that when time comes to take the action on our dreams, right, we're like, okay, I'm doing this, right? I'm doing this right now, right? I'm not holding back. What's happening, everybody? So that was the conversation today, right? I talked about a couple of things. I talked about, mental toughness, right? Deciding, even though I know what I want, even though I know what my plan is, right? Do I have the mental toughness to really go through with it, right? Do I have the self-discipline to really go through with it? And when you decide, like that you are going to go after a big goal, right? When you decide that you are going to go after a big vision, when you decide that you are going to be rich, well, you're going to need mental toughness to protect yourself from, possibly the drifters out there that are going to poke fun at you, that won't see the same vision that you have. Right? So we got to start working on that mental toughness. And then, I touched on self-discipline being the ability to give yourself a command and follow through with it. And finally, I think to wrap up this conversation, it really leads to your self-talk, right? The way that you talk to yourself is what's really going to determine whether you follow through on your plan or whether you don't. What's happening? So, with that being said, I appreciate you all for watching. That's the conversation today. I hope you guys have an amazing Thursday, and I will see you all same time, same channel tomorrow.